All right, so we've gone over the videos, how to use the clone stamp tool and how to use the lasso tool. Now I want to dive a little bit more in depth into how I might then combine these tools and use different layer effects to make an interesting abstract or kind of mix between abstract and figurative composition. So this should look pretty familiar. I have the squiggles of the out of focus slot machine. I have the background cowboy image, and I have the lasso, a clone stamp of the cowboy head, and then Pelican Pete's in the lasso. So what I'm going to do here is I'm not necessarily at this point going to be using the lasso or the clone stamp as much, but I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff in the layer panel to try to get interesting results. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to make a few more copies of this squiggle. And to do that, since I don't have it on the clipboard anymore, there's nothing that I can paste, the easiest way for me to do that is to find the layer and drag it to the new layer icon at the bottom of Photoshop, the layer panel. And then I get another copy. Now this copy comes in directly above the original, so I do have to be on my move tool, and then I do have to move it. I can also right click over the words of the layer. Note if I click on a different part of that, I'll get different options, but if I right click or control click over the layer name, I will have the option up top here to duplicate the layer. That is another way that you can do that, and again you'll have to move it to see it. So now I have this going all the way across, so I kind of have this repetitive shape that is now starting to anchor a composition. Now I'm starting to have a lot of layers, so I might want to start naming them. So again, I can do that by saying, double clicking on the layer name and calling it something that makes sense. But what I want to do now with these layers is before I do anything else, I want to play around with some blending modes. Now blending modes are different ways that the layer can interact, and you find them right here where it says normal. If you hit the little bar there and you pay attention to the squiggle near the middle and you go over these different effects, and it just provides different ways for the layers to interact with each other. And so I might just decide to pick one of these. And I think I kind of liked color dodge is all right. And I also kind of thought I liked, no, vivid light's too much. But I do like hard light. So let's just stick with hard light for that one. Then I'm going to go to a different one, and I'm going to try a different blending mode. So this time I'm going to do darken. I'm just going to go on down the line and change these to different options, so we can kind of end up also seeing through them. Okay, so we get kind of funky approach there. And I'm just going to continue going down the line and do difference, and I'll leave one as is, or actually no, maybe I'll change the opacity of this one. That's another way to have the layers interact, but this is potentially a little bit less interesting, but it can be very helpful. All right, so now I have a kind of pattern that's also got some difference in it. I might want to get some other elements. Maybe I might want to start by going to my background layer. And maybe I'm thinking about cloning this palm tree. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I need to be on the background layer because that's where those pixels are. Then I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer by hitting the new layer icon. And that brings it in right above the background layer, which is convenient because then when I go to the clone stamp and I choose current and below, and then I option click to define a point to copy, then I come here and I start painting. Okay, and then I start to get the results that I am looking for. Okay, now I might also want to go to a different image, right? And I have these different images up. Okay, and let's find one I haven't used yet. So I haven't used the dice. And I haven't used this. Now I like all the colors here, so let me use the lasso tool. And I'm just going to kind of loosely select this kind of wonky pattern here. And then I'm going to press Command and C to copy, and Command and V to paste. Okay, so I now have this little squiggle here, and it's a little bit smaller than I wanted, which is too bad, but I can't really make it. We can try to make it bigger, but usually what's going to happen is it's just going to lose quality, and I can already see some of the pixelation happening. So I'm just going to go to my magnifying glass and kind of zoom into it. Okay, and I can kind of see that it's looking a little fuzzy. And this might not matter as much because it is kind of abstract colors, but if you compare the fuzziness of this to the smoothness of this clipping, you'll kind of get a sense of what happens when you enlarge the image. So since that's smaller than I wanted, I'm going to go ahead and just hide that, and actually I'm going to click on the layer and just press delete on the keyboard to get rid of it. And I'll go ahead and I will use the dice. Now with the dice, I'll go ahead and I'm actually just going to use the quick select to kind of just randomly select parts of the dice, and then I'm going to press copy, right, Command and C, and then Command and V to paste. So I have this kind of random die shape coming in here. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that here, and I'm going to Command V to paste it again. I'm going to just kind of use this to cover up the building a little bit. Okay, but I don't really want to cover up the palm trees, so I'm going to leave the palm trees there. Now, you might also decide with these images that you don't like the way certain effects are working out. Maybe you want to see the cowboy clearly. So if there's something in the way and you want to see it clearly, you might want to use a layer mask. And the best way to do it in this case is to make a selection of the area that you don't want. So say I want to see the cowboy clearly, so I want to kind of have this area clear of all of these little squiggles. I could select that area, and then of course I would have to find the right layer, which in this case I'm going to choose this layer. And of course you need to find it. Now one way to find it is to click the eyeball and wait until you see it disappear and reappear. And of course it is the squiggle 1 layer. So this layer, I want to click on it. And then if I click my layer mask option, which is the little circle in the rectangle that looks like a camera, if I click that, you'll see it clips the edges of that. So I'm going to just undo that, and you see it clips it. Now in this case, I don't want it to clip what's outside, I want it to clip what's inside here. So I'm going to need to make the selection a little bit differently. So I'm going to press Command and D to deselect. And I'm going to go ahead and just select this part of the image, and then I am going to click the layer mask button, and now it will only be this part, so I can now see this more clearly. Now next I need to do the same thing to this image or this layer, so I need to click it, the eyeball, to see it. So I have that. So I'm going to make another layer mask, looking for the circle in the rectangle that looks like a camera. And then I'm going to go ahead and just select the areas that I want to still see. Which in this case is something like that. And then I'm going to go ahead. So I did that wrong, actually. Sorry. I made the layer mask before that, and I want to then right click and delete the layer mask. I want to go ahead and make that selection again. And then I want to make the layer mask so that I can now see this cowboy. Now, if you do have a layer, I'm going to choose this layer that we can see clearly. If you do have a layer and you do make a layer mask first, you can always, rather than making a selection first, you can always use your paintbrush tool to then paint in areas that are black to hide or white to show. So I have black and white. And the square in front here is going to be the square that I'm painting with. So if I paint black, I'm kind of erasing the image a little bit, but what's nice is I'm not permanently erasing it. You never ever want to use the eraser tool, and you never want to try to actually delete pixels, because then you just can't bring them back. The nice thing about this is I painted it black, and you can see that there's just a little bit of black on the layer mask. Now if I wanted to bring it back and I didn't like it, I could be like, okay, I want to paint it white, and then it will just bring it back. Or maybe I want to keep it, but I want to be able to see all of my edges, so I can still kind of see that squiggle shape. Okay, so that's another way to make a layer mask. And then you have a composition, and I think really the more you mess around with the layer blending modes, again that's down here, as well as the opacity of the layers and messing around with layer masks, I think the more you do that, the more interesting your image will become.